Everybody ready? Here we go. Everybody ready? Here we go. Everybody ready?
Hello and welcome to a quick overview of my older elementary slideshow geared towards students in 3rd grade and above. This part of my assembly program lasts about 30 minutes, and like I explained in my overview of the younger show, my goal here is to inspire your students to believe in their ideas. I want to get them ready to write. So let's get into the content of the slideshow. If you know kids in 3rd through 6th grade, you know that as kids get older, they seem to somehow lose their enthusiasm for writing. It's a lot of work for them, and they seem to not enjoy it very much. And many of them don't believe they have good ideas. So I like to try to encourage them, to remind them that writing is fun. Because it's fun to invent stories. And what kinds of people are creative? Well, just like in the younger show, artists are creative. Also, business people. Now, if you looked at the video of my younger show, I hope you'll notice that the images that I use for the older kids are a little more sophisticated, a little hipper, not quite as young, because I don't want to insult them, make them think that they're looking at baby illustrations. At this point, I do give a quick look at some of the ways that I've used my ideas. I tell them that I love to travel, and wherever I travel, I draw for kids. And over my career of illustration, I've done silly things, like silly putty. And I've also done cool things, like this cover for an activity book for Ringling Brothers Circus. I've mentioned the 2 books that I currently have out, Max Bonker and the Howling Thieves, and a book for younger kids called Farley Found It. I'm now at work at the sequel for Farley called Tucker Took It. But I don't just use my creativity for work projects. There's a lot of things in my family and in my home that I do creatively. Here's an example of something that I invented in my kitchen. This is a very popular slide. I think this is maybe the first time in the slideshow that you realize how off the wall I am. Up to this point, the slideshow has been very much like the younger show, but this is where it really starts to change, because I like to draw for the older kids a comparison between creativity and cooking. Because in cooking, if you want something good to come out of your oven, you put in good ingredients. Same thing is true with creativity. We want to talk about and focus on the good ingredients that go into having ideas. The first good idea is learn to notice things. And I point out to kids that actually children are more likely to notice things than grown-ups, because they actually can slow down and look at things. This is such a key ingredient to being creative, learning to see things that other people walk past. The second good ingredient is also seeing, but a little different. It's looking with your imagination. So I show them 3 slides, which end up with this one. It could be a rabbit, it could be a duck, depending on which way you're looking. And these are to talk about different ways of looking at things, different ways of seeing. Detectives are a good example of people who look at things differently. Also, artists use this ability. For instance, in this sculpture of a bird, if you look closely, you can see a shovel. One man has put it like this: creativity is seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else has thought. So, cloud shapes are a good example of that. Looking at something and seeing your own unique idea. So those are the first 2 good ingredients. The last good ingredient is to stuff your head full of good things. And where can creative people get ideas? They can get them from books. They can get them from electronic media, like DVDs, video games, from the web. How about sampling lots of different kinds of music? Or sampling different styles of art? By the way, this is the one painting in my slideshows that I didn't do. It's by a middle school art teacher friend of mine, but all the others are my creations. Another source of good ideas is studying a language or trying new foods. And this is one of my favorite parts in the show, where I get to gross them out with a couple of examples of strange foods that I've eaten in other lands. So those are the 3 basic ingredients to being a creative person. But how do we get kids then, after they've started to gather these ideas, how do we get them to bring those ideas out? Well, as one man put, in order to be creative, one must learn to think aside. Or think in a different way. But how do we get off the beaten path? How do we get out to a place where we're finding our own ideas? The way to do that is brainstorming. I give an explanation of how brainstorming works in this slideshow, but it's later in the workshop where we actually get to experience brainstorming as a group. It's tremendously motivating for kids. I also teach them two things that I call idea stompers. These are little messages that kids have in their heads that will crush an idea before it gets started. For instance, don't make a mistake, or nobody else is doing it. I want to encourage kids to get past those and not be afraid to take risks. That's how you find creative ideas. I also teach kids the classic imagination question, what if? I tell them, Harry Potter started with a what if question. J.K. Rowling asked, what if magic was real? And that's what got everything started. I also encourage kids to keep a little pocket-sized notebook to jot down their ideas. This is what creative people do. This is one of my notebooks. I also show them samples from Thomas Edison's notebook, Leonardo da Vinci's notebook. And once we've gathered these ideas, our brains do this amazing thing of combining things. So taking a little bit of a movie that they saw, putting it together with something that they thought of on their own or something they heard from someone else. Here's another quote for you. A man said that creativity is the marriage of ideas that had previously not been introduced. So I want to show kids that it's really easy to put things together and come up with an original concept. And just as I do in the younger assembly, I show some examples of ways that I've combined things. Then I have one more analogy that I use with the kids, that their imaginations are like a stream in the springtime, just gushing and flowing with ideas. The best way to keep those ideas flowing is to actually do something, not just to sit and listen. So at this point, I wrap up my slideshow and we move into the audience participation activities. And I do have a short video that you can watch to see what they are and how they work. They're really fun and your kids are going to love them, so check them out.